I'll pass you over to Noah, who will talk about her amazing, I don't know, title, Shofar in Berlin, our Yom HaShoah talk. And thank you all once again for joining us. Okay. Right, Noah, the floor is yours.
Okay, so Erev Tov, good evening. And I have a little more to tell about myself besides what Janice just said. I wanted to say that I live in a moshav, okay, in Otef Aza. I am a sabra, okay, which comes to I need your excuse for my English, okay. Although I worked a lot with Meir Harash, which really helped me with my English. I also have to thank him for helping with this presentation, correcting my English. And let's start. I'll share a presentation. Okay, so these are the Stolpersteine, the stumbling stones that were laid to commemorate my relatives who were murdered in the Shoah. And I'm going to tell you about them. I will tell you about the Schanziner family, their fate, what happened to them, what we knew and what we found out during our research. I'll tell you about the Stolpersteine project, our journey, which was very, very short. It was a day and a half in Berlin. And I will tell you a little about the Holocaust Heritage Wagon in Netanya, which is out of gratitude to people who really helped us. And I would like to make people make people know about their project. And of course, we'll have questions. As Jenny said, you can write in the chat. After the talk, you can open your mics and ask everything you want to ask. So this is my family. These are my mother's family, okay? You can see here, this is Savta Aliza, my grandmother Aliza, the mother of my mother, her 4 sisters, and her parents, David and Berta, and also David's first wife, Ita. I marked them. You can see that David and Berta, my great-grandparents, Rosa and Lena, they were murdered in the Holocaust, and they were the motivation to go out on this research. Ita was the first wife. She died in 1900 in Poland, unrelated to the Holocaust. There was another girl. My grandmother had another sister named Fanny who died as a child in Berlin. And there was also another sister named Rolly who fled Germany, okay, in 1940, arrived in Israel and lived here all her life. My grandmother and my great-grandfather, Aliza and Yehuda, fled Germany right after the Kristallnacht. My grandfather was arrested for a few days. He had a very shocking, a very, very unpleasant experience, and this is very weak words to describe what happened to him. We didn't know that. All we knew is that he was arrested, that he was released because he was not a German citizen. He was a citizen of Czechoslovakia, and that's why he was released. A few years ago, my aunt found a book, a memorial book of the Dresden Jewish community, in which his testimony appeared. Apparently, he went in 1970 to Dresden and gave his testimony. And then my aunt translated it into Hebrew. It appears in Hebrew and actually, I think also in English in my Facebook page, Shofar in Berlin. And so they fled Germany. They went for a few months to Denmark. If you know the Melchior family, the rabbis of Denmark and Scandinavia, they are my family. So they stayed there for a few months and then they arrived in Israel on this date, September 9th, 1939. For me, every time I tell about this date, I I don't know the word, my hair rises. The day when the Second World War broke out, on that same day they arrived in Haifa, and my mother was born 4 years later in Jerusalem on Mount Scopus. This is a map of Europe, and I try to show here in very basic lines what happened to them. Okay, this is Germany. Aunt Rosa was sent first in one of the first transports from Berlin to Riga in November 41, and apparently she was murdered in the Rumbula Forest massacre. I will tell about each of them in a second, but now I want to show the whole picture. Aunt Lena was sent in March 42 after half a year to Travniki in Poland. And then my great-grandparents were sent in the elderly transport to Theresienstadt and died there. When I look at this map, I can see two things. One is very general and one is very private. The general thing is that when you look at this map, you understand the sent to the east. Okay, we always learn about it, we hear about it, that the Jews were sent to the east. And here you can really see how the German people did not want to pollute their German soil. So they sent the Jews to die in other places, in places of nations that were estimated to be less important, so they can have the Jewish blood. And the private thing is that my great-grandparents had 5 daughters. 2 fled Germany. 1 was sent to Riga. They didn't know that, but they knew she was sent out of Berlin. The other one was sent half a year later, and they stayed alone. Okay, they were a poor couple, sick, old, stayed alone. None of their daughters were with them. We'll never know why they didn't leave, if they could not leave. We don't have anybody to ask. In my mother's family, they did not talk. My mother never heard about the Holocaust. The only thing she knows is that she saw her mother crying. There was a program on the radio when you could search for your relatives. So she was sitting and crying in front of the radio, but that's it. There was no talk, nobody talked, not about family history and not about what happened to them. They didn't really know what happened to them. David Berek Shantziner, my great-grandfather, I will tell you a little about what happened to him. Everything in yellow is what we found out. These are things that we did not know before our research. We know he was born in 1868 in Warsaw. He married Ita Niozarov in 1893, and this simple sentence is actually a very big story. We knew he was married because we knew there was a girl, there was a daughter, okay, that was not the daughter of my great-grandmother, but we did not know anything. We did not know her name, what happened to her, if they split, if she died, if they split, why the daughter went with her father or not with her mother, which I'm sure was not usual at the times. And we really did not know anything. The way we found out, I used my heritage site in which I built my family tree. And my heritage have a very interesting algorithm that I got an email saying that David Shantziner appears in another family tree of a woman named Susan Clamp from England. I did not know her. Even today, I don't know her. But I know that he appears in her family tree. It's not only the name, they see according to other relatives that it's really the same person. So I contacted her through the site and I asked if maybe you know about the first wife. And I don't exactly recall the correspondence, but eventually I got a link to their wedding certificate. It's a document from 1893 from Warsaw in Polish, and a good friend, Matania Tatiana. You will hear this name a lot during the coming hour. She translated it into Hebrew, and this way we found out her name, okay, her, I forgot the name, her first family name, and when they were married. So we know that. We know that their daughter was born in 1896, and we know that Ita died in 1900. This is another story. I was talking to Matania on the phone. One day, she's in Germany, I'm in Israel, and I ask her, I say, I wonder what happened to Ita. Okay, what I said before, if she died, if they got divorced. And she says the amazing sentence, let me send an email to the old cemetery in Warsaw. Who could imagine that the old cemetery in Warsaw will have an email? And she sent it, and after an hour, we had a photo of the grave and all the information about her, the location of her grave. So now we know that she died in 1900. And we know that her husband emigrated to Berlin. We don't know as of now when. We know he married Berta Bela, Nee Holman. We do not know at the moment when and where, okay? These are, and I say as of now because this research continues all the time. And I'm sure that when I will retire, these things will be checked, okay? It's a part of the holes that we have to fill in. We know they resided in 5 Gormenstrasse in Berlin. This is important to the project of Stolpersteine. We know that he was a doorman or a gardener to Jewish cemetery. And also at some time he worked in a cigarette factory. These are facts that you could find in address books from 1905, 1910 from Berlin. We know that the daughters were born, and then they were deported in the summer of 42 in the elderly transport of many elderly, Jewish elderly were sent to Theresienstadt from the Jewish elderly home in Berlin, which we visited. And he survived a year, and then he died in September 43, 2 days before Yom Kippur in Theresienstadt out of typhus. And he was buried in a coffin number 19199, which for me was shocking to find out that he had a coffin. I will say a little about this in a moment. Bela Berta Shantziner, my great grandmother, she was born in 1882 in Kovno, Russia, and her parents' names were Eli and Michal. Now, I don't know if everybody understands it, but Eli and Michal are totally Israeli names. And to think that this Jewish couple in the middle of the 19th century in Russia were named Eli and Michal was a surprise for us. And my aunt's second name is Michla, and we never knew why. And I think that now we know why. And I think it's a little takeoff of the name Michal. So she emigrated to Berlin, Germany. We did not know when. They married. Everything else is the same. And she was deported with him on the same transport. She died on Nisan 14th, on Lela Seder, after a year and a half in Theresienstadt. And she was also buried. We have the number of the coffin. We have this document from Bet Rezin about both of them. And when I saw the coffin number, I said I was very happy to know that, very happy, not happy that they were murdered, but at least they had a coffin. Which Jew who died on the Holocaust had a coffin? And I made contact with the Bet Rezin, and I asked them, what's the story? And maybe there is a cemetery that we can visit in Theresienstadt. And they said, like, don't be so happy. Yes, there were coffins. Yes, there was a funeral, but then the person was taken out of the coffin and someone else was put in for another funeral. And no, there is no cemetery that you can visit, but at least there was a funeral, okay? At least that, which was surprising. Rosa Shantziner. Now I have to say that my aunt for many years, even before this research started in 2012, for many years she asked me to find out what happened to my great aunts. And We knew from the witness pages that my grandfather gave to Yad Vashem, they knew that both of the great aunts died in the forest of Riga. That's it, in 42. And for many years, she asked me to find out what happened to them. And I said, what do you want to know, Ruti? What do you want to know? Like, isn't it enough horrible? And she said, I want to know what happened. And then one day I called her and I said, Ruti, we have your site. I know the date, I know the hour, I know the location where she was murdered. This is about Rosa. The way I found it is via a site called Find a Grave. Apparently there is an American person named the Bearded Graver, and his hobby is to travel around Europe and take photos of Jewish cemeteries and Jewish monuments to people who were murdered in the Holocaust. And I found her name, which appeared on one of the monuments. And this is how I found that she was deported on November 27th, 41. It's the second transport that went out of Berlin to the east. And there were, according to this monument, they drive to Riga. Okay, it's a 3 days journey. We know it's a horrible journey on the train. They arrived in a train station near Riga on a Shabbat morning, but then there was a problem. The Nazis had a problem. Their plan was to take the Jews out of Riga, to kill them in the Rumbula forest, and to bring the Jews from Berlin into the ghetto. Why? They wanted to use them for work, and maybe they thought that Jews from the West are better than Jews from the East. So they wanted the Jews from the East, from Riga, to be killed, and the Jews from the West, from Germany, to work until they will not be usable, and then of course they will have the same fate. But they didn't do it on time. So the Jews were still in the ghetto, and the transport from Berlin arrived in the train station, and there was no place in the ghetto. So they left them there for another day. Okay, after this horrible journey, they were still on the train for another day. And on Sunday morning, they were headed to the Rumbula forest, into big trenches, and they were shot into the trenches after they had to go through 2 lines of people, locals and Nazis, no clothes, no nothing, no artifacts, nothing of their belongings. They were shouted at, they were spat at, they were everything that you can imagine, and then they were shot into those trenches. But then I found another version. I found out that she appears in a Jungfernhof concentration camp, which is very close to Riga. And then I contacted the Bearded Graver to ask him about this contradiction. And what he said is that the monument is based on the people who left Berlin. So we know she left Berlin on this train. But maybe she jumped off the train, and maybe she was then caught and sent to Jungfernhof and died there. We do not really know. We treat this day, November 30th on 41, as our Yortzeit. This is a part of the monument in Rumbula forest. Lena was another reason why we got to our research, because in 2012, when we started, we asked to lay Stolpersteine for them. Lena was not accepted to the project because they could not find her documents. And you can see here why they couldn't find her. We never knew she was married. So Lena Shantziner was not found, but Lena Lozhinsky was found. Apparently she got married. Apparently it was a faked marriage. And apparently her husband fled Germany. We do not know that, but my aunts, after we found this out, they started remembering very vaguely that there was talk about it in the family. They never met him. There was nobody talked about, I said nobody talked in the family, but also not about that. There was another reason why she was not found, because there was a mistake in the date. We thought it was 4th. This is what appeared in the witness page that my grandfather put in Yad Vashem, and the date was 3 days earlier. When we found her, she was accepted to the project. She resided in another address, which is important because in the Stolpersteine project, they lay the stones on the pavement near the last freely chosen address of the person. And here we wanted to put her with her family. Okay, so we asked them to give up on one of the rules of the project, and you know, it's the Germans. It was really hard for them, but they agreed. And the Stolpersteine for her was put with the others. She was a clerk at the Israeli office. And when you look at that, you have to wonder, maybe she could help herself, her family, but apparently she didn't. So she was deported on Shabbat Hagadol of 42, Shabbat before Pesach, to Lublin, Poland. And we are not really sure what happened to her, but she appears in the Travniki concentration camp as a missing person. So apparently she died there, but we are not sure of that. The Stolpersteine project, there is a German artist, non-Jew, named Gunther Demnig, who decided back in 1992 to create this commemoration project, which is very unique. It's not big. It's not the Holocaust monument, if you saw it or heard about it in Berlin. This is something very, very personal. They put a stone for each of the people, okay? I'll show you, this is a stone, okay? It's made of cement and brass in the upper layer. And on each stone, there is a name, there is a birth date, and then a date of deportation, and when and where they were murdered, if known. And Gunther Demnig insists on laying each of these stones by himself. This means that more of half of the year, he goes all around Europe and he lays the Stolpersteine. He insists on studying on each of the people. And this is his life. This is his life mission. That's what he does. More than 80,000 stones were laid in 1,600 locations, 26 countries, almost all of them in Europe. But also there is one in Argentina, and it's in most of the countries in Europe, except for the places that do not agree to put the stones. This stone was given to me by Matanya and Ronnie as a present for my lectures. If it would have not been a Zoom, I would have passed it between you, so you can feel it and see it. This specific stone was, it was not laid because there is a typo in it. It's for, you can see it's for a baby, less than a year, who was murdered in Auschwitz. So in the beginning of the research, we decided, in the beginning in 2012, my aunt asked me that we'll put stones for our relatives. And I was, the project people sent me to Matanya. Okay, this is Matanya Tatiana. She's German, she's a volunteer of the project. She converted to Judaism, but in the end of her process, it appeared that she didn't have to convert. She's a Jewish. Her great-grandmother on her mother's side was sent to the camps. They still have to find the documents, but apparently she's Jewish. This is her life partner at the time, Ronnie, who is an Israeli, who came to Berlin to put stones to his aunts. And they helped us in a million ways, many, many more than the assignments she had to do as a volunteer in this project. She did a lot more. And today she and myself, we call each other sister. She's really my sister. On the left, you can see Susan Clamp. This is the British woman who led me to the wedding certificate of my great-grandfather and his first wife. You can see here the bearded graver. who helped me a lot and was really helpful. And these are Tammy and Shai Zuckerman, who we did not know. And when we went to Berlin, right before the ceremony, we found out that they moved from Israel for a few years, and they live right above our stones. And they became good friends and the guards of the stones. And there were other people. These are really some of them. So we decided to travel to Berlin. And it's very little, only 3 words, but a really, really big issue. First of all, in my family, we do not go to Germany. We do not buy a German pencil. When the shopkeeper will say, this is a very good washing machine, it's a German, we'll say, thank you very much, please show me something else. And then traveling to Berlin, going back to this place, this was a very big issue. Another issue was that we were waiting for 3 years. I didn't say that. Since we were accepted to the project until the date of the ceremony, it took 3 years. Today, the list is even longer because more and more people want to lay Stolpersteine. And so it was on Shabbat. And we said, we're very sorry, but we will not come on Shabbat. We really wanted to be there, but it's not possible for us. And again, if this man is half of his days are traveling to Lay Stolpersteine, and to change the schedule is really, really, really hard. And again, they agreed to change it. It was on a Thursday, and in the beginning, I said I want to go for a few hours. I don't want to drink. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sleep there. Nothing. We'll come to the ceremony. We'll do something else, which I will tell you about in a second. And that's it. We have to leave. We found out it's not possible. Technical issues. And then we decided that we'll take this and make it this lemon into a lemonade. So we arrived on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. We left on Thursday at 10 p.m. And it was very, very short, very, very concentrated. On the first day, we went to places that are related either to the Holocaust or to our family. And on the second day, we had the Stolpersteine ceremony, and we went to Weissensee Cemetery to visit Fanny's grave. And here I have to open a parenthesis. Fanny died as a child in 1919. And I asked Matanya, maybe she can help us find information about her, because we didn't know anything. Even the name, my mother remembered something vaguely that her mother was talking about Fanny, her sister. My other aunts did not remember. My aunts, no, they did not remember. And we didn't know where she's buried, what happened to her, at what age it happened. So I asked Matanya if she could help us. She didn't have to. It's not related to Stolpersteine in any way. It's not related to the Holocaust, which she helps people finding information about. But of course, she said yes. And on one Friday, I opened my email and I see a photo of the grave of Fanny before Ronnie and Matanya cleaned it and after they cleaned it. So, and when you will see it later, you will understand that it's amazing that they could find it, the cemetery. So we went there after the ceremony, and that's it. Then we left Germany. I will tell you about a few of the places, not about all of them, the places that really touched me and moved me. This place is the Rosenstrasse demonstration and memorial in the Rosenstrasse street. In this street, there was the Jewish community building. And up to a very late stage in the war, the Nazis did not touch Jewish people who were married to non-Jews. They did, at that time, they really put a very heavy pressure on the Aryan side of the marriage to end it and to divorce the Jewish partner. And from what our counsel, the guide, our tour guide said, she said that many men, many Aryan men really collapsed and divorced their wives. knowing that the moment they get a divorce, those women are sent to their fate. They will be sent to the concentration camps and everything else. On the other side, many Aryan women did not collapse. They did not surrender to this pressure and stayed married to these men. There is a very good book named My Wounded Heart by Martin Derry that tells about his parents, two doctors. He's non-Jewish, she's Jewish, and it tells the whole story about not only about their family and about this couple, but about the process in which the Nazis convinced the whole population that the Jews are less human or less than human. And they convinced the husband, they put a lot of pressure on him, and he left his wife, and she died in Auschwitz. So I really recommend this book. I think is a must read. So what happened is that at a specific point in the war, many Jewish men who are married to non-Jewish women were brought to the Jewish community house and were locked there, and a train arrived to take them to the east. And then one of the wives arrived with a pot and a pan and started drumming them. And the next day there were 2, and another day were 10. Some versions talk about hundreds of women, others talk about thousands of women who were standing there and driving crazy, I'm sure their husbands and the Gestapo officers that were standing there, but could not do anything. They were Aryan, they were not Jewish. And we're talking about the days in the middle of the war, a demonstration in the middle of Berlin. The mayor is Goebbels, and those brave women are standing there and not giving quiet to nobody. And they succeeded. The train took the men and then made a U-turn, got back, and those men were released. Some of them were caught afterwards, but some of them, many of them, were survived the Holocaust. So this is a monument that it is right in front of this building. You can see here the woman trying to reach the husband behind bars, and this is after the release. My marriage name is Cohen, so you can understand this is very meaningful for me, the sign of the Kohanim blessing. And then everything that I showed you is on this area. Now here on the other side, there is a bench and a man sitting of it, of stone. And from distance, it looks very pastoral. Okay, you really want to sit next to him. But then when you get closer, you can see that his eyes are half closed and he looks to the other side. He doesn't look, okay, to this location. He looks to the other side. And this is part of the criticism of the sculptor who wanted to criticize all the people who look to the other side. And we're sitting with the eyes half closed. You can see here my cousin, okay? And he was going here. He was going to pray mincha, and he was doing it in a synagogue. He stands, you can see the marks of the foundation of the first synagogue built in Berlin back in something like 1700. And this is one way of commemoration that we saw in a few places. They needed the place, they needed the earth, but they wanted to leave the memory. So they left the foundation marks. You can see the door, you can see the walls, and he was standing in here. It was a very long prayer. It took like Mincha of Yom Kippur. And afterwards you will hear that he talks about this prayer. Another place was the empty library at Babel Square. This square is near the Humboldt University, the law faculty at the Humboldt University, where the books were burned in May 33. And there is a monument by Micha Ullman, an Israeli sculptor. And there is, you can see this plate in the four corners of the square. It says that was a prelude only, where you burn books, you end up burning people too. and it was written by Heinrich Heine in 1820. And on that square, we know what happened. And on another corner of this very big square, you could not find it if you don't know it's there. You see this, okay? You can see the shoe of our guide. This is a transparent hole to an empty library, okay, below the ground, and it's empty. It's empty of all the books that were burnt, and by purpose, it reflects the sky, it reflects the clouds to show all the books that could have been built on the back of those burnt books and all the human treasures that could have been created if not for these books burning and all the burning. And then we went to track 17 in Grunewald, the railway station, which is not really a monument. It's empty. It's very, very simple. It's an old rail station. And what you can see on it is names and details of transports of Jews, okay? Throughout the eye can see on both sides. And for us, it was very, very moving because we found the transports of our relatives, all of them were standing there. They were sent from this place. Okay, you can see here, 28th of March, 1942, in 1973, Juden from Berlin to district Lublin. All of the transports, all of them were sent from here. And then my mother called me and she said, look at this transport. Jews from Berlin were sent on June 16th, 1943 to Theresienstadt. She was born on June 14th, 1943 in Israel on Mount Scopus in Jerusalem. And it could have been in a second the other way around. More than all of the other monuments, this place we couldn't leave it. We just couldn't go away. This is on the second day we got to the building. This is the address. You can see Gomenstrasse 5, and there is a pass to the old house. The old house which they lived in still stands there. Of course, it was renovated, but it's still there. And when we arrived, okay, I'll tell you about it in a minute. Here, Gunther Demning puts the stones. He takes out a few of the pavement stones. And I have to say now something, because when people see the Stolpersteine, their first question is, why do people have to step over them? It's so unrespectful. And I asked Gunther Demnig when he was in Tel Aviv, I asked him this question and he had two answers. One was technical, the other was ideological. The technical answer was that they needed, of course, they need permission to put the Stolpersteine. If they would have put the Stolpersteine on the wall, they would have to get a permission from each house, okay? From each house management, which would, a lot of bureaucracy, and in many places, they would have not been able to put the stones. If they put it on the pavement, then they can ask for permission from the municipality, and that's it. So it's much easier. His other answer was that it's called Stolpersteine, in English, stumbling stones. Now, you don't really stumble on them. You do not fall if you tackle into them, but you feel a different texture under your shoe. And then you have to look. And when you look, you pay respect. You see the name of a person and you pay respect. I'm not his lawyer. I'm not defending his decision, but these were his answers. Now, it was very, I think you saw how gently he cleaned the stones, and then his wife, who's also a volunteer in the project, cleaned the stones, and every other person came and cleaned the stones. Another thing that he said to us, to smile, to be with you, to stand, to talk, to don't prepare any present, don't talk to him. He's a very unpleasant person. He will come, he'll put the stones and he will leave. And of course, he has 5 layout, laying ceremonies at the same day. But when he came to Israel, I found out that he's amazing. He's talkable. His wife was laughing when I said that we were told he doesn't talk. She said he doesn't stop talking. And he's really a lovely person. His car, I didn't show it, but his car is full of stones. Again, this is his life. That's what he does. He goes from place to place to lay the Stolpersteine. So when we arrived to the building, we saw Matanya, our friend and volunteer, standing in the first floor. Now, she was not supposed to know anybody there, which was a surprise. And then we found out that Shai Zuckerman, as I said, they moved there. He and his wife, Tammy, with their kids, moved there 2 months before our ceremony. We do not think it's an incidence. They are there to guard our stones, which is what they do. The moment he heard the story, he was with us in the ceremony, and he called his wife, and they cleaned the stones, and they put flowers and candles in specific dates during the year, and they are really close to us. What you see in the bottom of the photo is the souvenirs that were laid below the stones. They offered to bring souvenirs. So we brought a photo of the family from 2013. In this photo, there are about 100 people. If the Nazis would have succeeded, none of them would have been alive. And here we have the flag, the symbol of Israel, and some earth from Israel, from Eretz Israel. I didn't know that at the time, but then I found out that it was a custom in funerals abroad to put some earth from Eretz Israel. And it really made the ceremony look more like a funeral, which was very, very meaningful because they didn't have one. At least 2 of them for sure, and 2 of them have half a funeral. The flag, they told us not to bring flag. Okay, they said you're going to stand on the street in Berlin. It's not a good idea to stand with a flag. But when my cousin heard it in the morning of the ceremony, he said it's not possible. So we took an A4 paper and just drew the flag, and you will see that he stood with it during the whole ceremony. Dr. Offenberg, he's the head of a community of a Jewish synagogue in Berlin, not far away. I found that there is a synagogue very close to the house where they used to live. So I mailed them, and I asked, maybe you have information, maybe you have documentation, maybe my great-grandfather prayed there. And they said that there is no documentation from before the Holocaust. Second, they say that there were a lot of synagogues. Not, I found 2, but there were a lot of synagogues. It was a very Jewish neighborhood, mostly Ostjuden, Jews from the East in this area. But the head of the community said, if I will know the date when you come, I'll come. And he came, and he really, you'll see. This is us after the ceremony. It's Shai Zuckerman and Matanya, my mother, myself, my aunt, and my cousin. And you can see here the stones with the candles and the photo. Above the stones, you can see the stones. Matanya came to me in the beginning of the ceremony and gave me a plastic bag with the stones that she brought from Tel Aviv, which made it even more look like a funeral. We put them on the stones, and then they told us you can bring candles, make sure that they will have lids, because otherwise the wind will blow it off. And also you can bring photos, but you should know that the next morning they will be gone. Okay, the city workers will come. It's not supposed to stay there, and they will take it. The candles stayed for a month, and the photos stayed for 2 years until the wind took them away. And I'm the only one to blame that they don't have new photos and the story of the family, because I promised Tammy and Shai Zuckerman to prepare it, and I didn't do it. And every time when I do this lecture, I remember, and then I forget. Okay, this is a very short part of the ceremony. It was 20 minutes. I made it into a 3.5 minutes. And they offered us to bring a chazan and to bring singers and to bring school students, and we didn't want it. We wanted to do something private, small, something that will fit us.
יודעים שזו סביבה יהודית, ופה היה נהוג, אני לא יודע את זה מעצמי, אבל מאבא שלי, היה נהוג לשמוע בחודש הזה בבוקר.
It's a week and a half before ראש השנה.
שעות שופר. נכון? אנחנו, אחרי שחרית, אנחנו בחודש אלול, אנחנו תוקעים חשרת. חשבתי אם אתם מסכימים להחזיר קצת מהפים לכם, לתת כבוד. אליהו פייץ, חשרת. אפשר להחליט. זה הדגל. אנחנו פה גם בתור בני משפחה. וגם אולי בעיקר בתור עם ישראל שקם מהשואה והגיע לארץ ישראל. והתפילות היום דווקא פה היו מיוחדות. להבין את הברכה הראשונה, תפילת עמידה. הוא מביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, אמצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר אמן.
הגענו לכאן מישראל, מדינת היהודים. כן, בטח קשה לכם להאמין, אבל יש מדינה ליהודים. היא ממשלה יהודית וצבא יהודית חזק. עם הספר פורח ומשגשג בארצו הישנה חדשה. מאוחר מדי בשבילכם, אבל חשבנו שתרצו לדעת שיש לכם נכדים, נינים, חימשים ובני חימושים שחיים ומקימים משפחות במדינת היהודים. הנאצים ניסו להשמיד את המשפחה שלנו, אבל לא הצליחו. הנה ראו, הבאנו לכם תמונה כמעט עדכנית של השבט. לשכנים בגורמנשטרסה ומסביב, אנחנו מבקשים שתזכרו. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים. הגדיל אדוני לעשות עמנו היינו שמחים.
The ceremony took place in September 2016. It was the first days of Facebook Live, and the ceremony was broadcasted. So people from around the world were watching it with us. And in Israel at that time, our family members, they lighted candles and they really with us. And I do not show you a song that my husband wrote, and we got it after a few hours. We were going in the cemetery in Berlin right after the ceremony, and he sent a song, which one day I will translate into English, but it was, he managed to understand everything. The German Jews that are playing on the other side of the street, and the people who are going there, and all the feelings and emotions and everything. This is what happened since 2016. You can see the children of the Zuckerman family with the flowers and the candles on a Kristallnacht, on the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Here they wrote that they cleaned the stones. And here on the left side, you can see kindergarten kids that are walking here every day. And at this day, because of the flowers and the candles, they stopped, and their teacher told us about the Stolpersteine, which for me is really meaningful. And I also have to say that Tammy suggested that we'll do a Shofar in Berlin in Zoom to the neighbors. And it didn't happen this year because the apartment is now under renovation, but when it will be finished, I really look forward to it. I think it's a very important part of the puzzle. About the Holocaust train car in Netanya, I said this is out of gratitude to Netanya and Ronnie, who brought this wagon from Germany. It was used to transport Jews in the Holocaust. It was brought to Israel in 2013 to Ashdod, and then with those Harley Davidson escorted the Caron, the wagon from Ashdod to Netanya. And this photo was taken after a few years when they came to visit the Caron, the wagon. Educational activities are held there for youth, for adults. Everybody can come and visit the place. And there are ceremonies there, and it's located in Yad Labanim, a square right across, right near the sea in Netanya. I really recommend you to go and see it. So these are some of the books and films that I was talking about. And here you can see links. If anybody wants the presentation, you can see here my email address or my WhatsApp number. I'd be happy to share it. There is also a Facebook page, Shofar in Berlin, with all the information. That's it. I will stop share and I'll look at the chat. Okay, the chat is empty, so everybody can open, you can open your microphone and ask, say anything.
First of all, can I certainly thank you so much. It was just an amazing story. It's like, wow, overwhelming and moving. And I just want to pass you on to Sharon, who will thank you properly, and then we'll open it up to questions. Just, yeah. Right, Sharon.
That was, I'm still speechless. I have to take it all in. First of all, your English is excellent. You speak beautifully, and it's a very beautiful and moving story. I thank you so much on behalf of all of us for sharing it with us. And thank you for all of you who are here tonight. We have people here from all over the world.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
And thanks, Meir, for my English.
And thanks, Mayor, for telling us about this.
Mm-hmm. We have no questions. Ah, here we are. Unfortunately, I need to thanks. Oh, okay. Anybody have any questions while we're still online?
Just a comment. A year ago at this time, Noah was supposed to be in Philadelphia doing the presentation at our Zion Synagogue for our Yom HaShoah program. Who would have known that we'd be isolated for these 15 months? But I pray that next year we'll be able to have Noah do the presentation in person at Har Zion. Noah is an amazing human being, and it's been my privilege to have worked with her and been by her side in partnership with Netivot and Sodot Negev and the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. And if it weren't for Noah and Meir Harash, who knows where the partnership would be. So I thank you both formally to those of you in Israel to understand the great gesture that has been created across the ocean between Israel and Philadelphia.
Thank you so much, Elliot, for your words and for who you are.
Okay, I see there's no questions. So thanks everybody And just be well, stay well, and yeah.
And we'll let Noah go because she's doing this presentation tonight, later tonight.
But in Hebrew, it's much easier.
אז אני אגיד
Perfecting, yeah.
אז אני אגיד בעברית מרתק, חשוב, משמעותי, ויש לי צמרמורת בכל היד, אז תודה לך.
תודה מאיר.
תודה רבה. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
ביי, להתראות.
ביי, להתראות. תודה רבה. באמת.
תודה רבה.
Thanks. Great.
If anybody wants to keep chatting to each other, then go ahead. I'll leave it open a few minutes. Okay.
All right. I just remembered that the name Holman came up, and we know a few Holmans in Leeds, from Leeds. But there are probably lots of Holmans in the world. So,
Maybe. I don't know. Interesting there. Yeah.
all right. Bye.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Sue. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.